The Minions movies are wild and loved by everyone, but surprisingly, we found 15 jaw-dropping mistakes that show even the funniest animated hits can totally mess up sometimes. Let's check them out. Number 1. Gru and Dr. Nefario's first meeting. One of the more significant mistakes involves Gru and his loyal scientist, Dr. Nefario. In the first Minions movie, when the Minions attend the supervillain convention, we see a young Gru along with his mother and even a much younger version of Dr. Nefario. This would mean that Gru and Nefario met very early, and Gru had already used one of his inventions. But in The Rise of Gru, we get a scene where Gru goes into a store and meets Nefario, who gives him a sticky gun. The film frames this moment as their first encounter and Gru's first time using one of Nefario's gadgets. Both cannot be true at once, which creates a direct contradiction in the continuity of their relationship. Number 2. The mysterious duct tape. One of the funniest gags in the first Minions movie happens during the villain convention, when Bob tries to prove that he is truly bad. To do this, he takes his beloved teddy bear and tries to make it look scary using paper and a roll of duct tape that appears to be sitting on the villain recruiter's table. The humor works perfectly because it highlights how Bob's version of being frightening is still sweet and innocent. However, when the scene is examined more closely, it becomes clear that something is wrong. In the shots just before this moment, there is no duct tape visible anywhere on the table. It simply materializes when Bob needs it, turning this funny scene into another small but noticeable continuity error. Number 3. The missing poster in Gru's room. One of the most charming moments in The Rise of Gru is when Bob has a nightmare and goes into Gru's bedroom to sleep beside him. The room is full of posters of the Vicious Six, showing Gru's obsession with his villain idols. A little later, Kevin also joins them in bed. When Kevin lies down, a poster of Knuckles that had been visible behind Gru's head in the previous shot is suddenly gone. The poster disappears entirely as if it had never been there, which breaks the continuity of the set design. Number 4. Stewart's disappearing arrows. Later in the first movie, when the Minions are already working for Scarlet Overkill, she tells them her own version of the story of the Big Bad Wolf. In this parody, Scarlet plays the wolf while Kevin, Stewart, and Bob take on the roles of the three little pigs. In one particular moment, Stewart, dressed as a pig, ends up with several arrows sticking out of his back. It looks funny and matches the slapstick humor of the film. However, in the very next scene, before Scarlet throws objects at the pigs as punishment for their failure, the arrows on Stewart's back have completely disappeared. No explanation, no gag about them falling off, just gone. It is a clear example of continuity being overlooked. Number 5. Gru's age versus movie release dates. One of the most famous mistakes in the franchise involves our dear mini-boss, Gru, and the timeline of his childhood. According to the official file shown in the films, Gru was born in 1960. That means that when the first man landed on the moon in 1969, young Gru would have been about 9 years old. However, in Minions, The Rise of Gru, we get a scene in which Gru and his minions pull a prank in a movie theater. The movie on the marquee is Jaws, which was released in 1975. If he truly was born in 1960, then by 1975 he would have been 15 years old, already a teenager, which he clearly is not in that movie. This is a straightforward timeline inconsistency, one of the most obvious continuity problems across the series. Number 6. The 4-stick nunchaku. Among the Vicious Six, there is a villainous nun named Nunchaku, who wields the martial arts weapon of the same name. During a chase scene in The Rise of Gru, Nunchaku throws her weapon at Gru and the minions. The scene is slowed down dramatically to highlight the action, but that actually reveals a major problem. Instead of showing the weapon with its 2 sticks connected by a chain, as a real Nunchaku would be, the animation mistakenly shows what looks like 4 sticks. At normal speed, this could have been dismissed as a blur effect, but in slow motion, it is impossible to ignore. The animators essentially added extra pieces to the weapon, which is a clear design error. Number 7. The knife that changes position. Inside the crime family's car, when the 3 minions are picked up and offered a ride, there is a moment where the mother is cutting small slices of apple for them. To do this, she uses a knife with a handle that has a noticeable curve. At first, when the camera shows her holding it, the curved part of the handle is clearly facing upwards. However, when the scene shifts to a different angle, the same knife suddenly has its curved handle facing downwards. This flip in orientation happens instantly without any explanation. Although it is a very minor continuity slip, it becomes obvious once spotted and stands out as an animation oversight in an otherwise seamless sequence. Number 8. The sudden tree shadow. In the sequence with Otto and the children, another strange mistake appears. The first time we see the kids, they are playing in bright sunlight with no shadow from a tree anywhere near them. But when the scene cuts back after Otto's fall, suddenly there is a huge shadow of a tree covering the ground in the same garden. The tree had never been visible before and seemed to appear out of nowhere. This is another small continuity error that breaks the visual logic of the setting. Number 9. Otto gets clean too fast. After Otto falls in the mud, he is covered in dirt, which makes sense. However, as he chases the amulet, he slides down a small playground slide. Sliding down a slide might wipe off a little bit of mud, but it certainly would not leave someone perfectly clean. Yet when Otto comes flying back into the air to catch the amulet, he is spotless, almost as if he had taken a bath. This is clearly unrealistic even within the playful cartoon logic of the movie. It is another example of the animators choosing convenience over consistency. Number 10. Bob's disappearing lunchbox. In the first Minions movie, one of the funniest moments comes when Kevin, Stuart, and Bob finally get picked up by a family of villains who give them a ride to Orlando. At the moment they enter the car, you can clearly see Bob holding a small lunchbox where he keeps his little teddy bear. However, only a few seconds later, as the Minions climb into the car, the lunchbox has vanished. It is not tucked away, it is not hidden, it is simply gone. This is a classic animation continuity slip where a prop is forgotten between shots. Number 11. The girl who changes skin color. When Otto returns with the Zodiac amulet, the movie shows him walking while staring at the artifact. In the background, 4 children are happily playing ball in the sun. Among them is a girl in a yellow dress who is clearly black. Moments later, Otto trips and falls into the mud. When he gets up, the same children are shown again in the background, but now the very same girl in the yellow dress is white. It is one of the more bizarre mistakes since it involves something as obvious as skin color. Number 12. The license plate mix-up. Before the Minions manage to get that ride to Villain Con, there is a short sequence where they try to get a lift on the road. First, a hippie van stops to pick up someone. The license plate on the van is D6413. Right after that, an old lady who cannot see or hear very well also drives by, and her car has the same license plate, D6413. In reality, 2 cars cannot legally have the same license plate, and in a movie world that usually prides itself on detail, this repetition is an obvious oversight. It seems the animation team reused the same plate rather than creating a new one for the second car. Number 13. The inconsistent time periods. Beyond the specific moments, the Minions films as a whole sometimes struggle with their timeline. Events are meant to be set in certain historical periods, but the details do not always add up. Characters appear earlier or later than they should, and cultural references do not match the years in which the scenes are supposed to take place. For example, some music, fashion choices, or background elements are out of sync with the official dates given for the historical events referenced. These broad inconsistencies create confusion about exactly when the stories are supposed to happen. Number 14. Kevin's eye color variation. One of the smaller but still noticeable mistakes in the Minions movies is the inconsistency in Kevin's eye color. In certain scenes, his eyes are clearly shown as brown, but in other moments they appear to have a greenish tint. What makes it even more distracting is that this change does not stay within a single movie, but actually shifts from one film to another. Number 15. Minions' size fluctuations. Finally, one of the strangest mistakes is the way the size of the Minions themselves changes from scene to scene. Sometimes they appear much taller or shorter relative to humans, or even to objects like cars, doors, or furniture. In one shot, they might barely reach Gru's waist, while in another, they look closer to his chest. This inconsistency happens across the movies and makes it difficult to pin down their true scale. It is a visual error that can be distracting if you pay close attention. So there you have it, 15 mistakes hidden throughout the Minions movies. Which of these were you able to spot on your own? We'd love to hear your thoughts, so be sure to leave them in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in our next episode.